we had a significant investment in. We're forecasting to come in at this level. While we're doing all these projections and forecasting, we're spending real dollars. And this is where a lot of us, we allow our faith to waver because we get those human moments where it's like, man, it doesn't feel like I thought it was going to feel, or, you know, maybe what if it doesn't work? You know, you start getting those negative thoughts creeping in. And so I just thought it was a good conversation for us to have. It's just, you know, appraisals versus projections.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. We got Mike back. Welcome.
Yeah.
What's up? What's up,
Hey, we only got him for a moment now. He's busy, about to run to the next field.
Yeah. No, it's been cool, man. It's just, you know, life be lifing. And I've been, you know, one of the prayers of mine is, you know, I ask the Lord to expand my territory. And when the Lord opens up the floodgates, he opens up the floodgates. And, you know, we were just talking about capacity. You know, sometimes you have these prayers or these wishes and you have to work yourself up to being ready into that position. So I'm kind of in that situation now where, you know, a lot of things are happening and we're evolving in real time. So
yeah. I think that's kind of segue right into the topic that you wanted to present. You want to bring it?
Yeah. So it's kind of to piggyback on our last business episode when we were talking about scaling up. And we were talking about the different things that come with you scaling. It's not just increasing, you know, your profit, increasing your workforce. There are a lot of things that a lot of people, including myself, didn't fully factor in until I got to a certain level. And it kind of, you know, I'm going through this in real time. And so I thought it would be a good topic for us to just bring to the fellas and bring to you guys. And so the topic is appraisals versus projections. And the reason why I felt like it is so real is because obviously I do real estate. I think you guys probably know that. I know you guys know that. And I've been working on some diverse projects lately. And one in particular, we had a significant investment in, and it was higher than we've done thus far. So we're looking off, you know, data, comps, and we're saying, okay, we should be able to yield this X amount of return on our investment. And, you know, I'm talking to my wife, I'm talking to my business partners, like, okay, well, you know, my projection is it should come in about this, or, you know, we're forecasting to come in at this level. And while we're doing all these projections and forecasting, we're spending real dollars. We're spending real money versus projections and forecasts. And I thought it was just such a great example of, I mean, we were using data, but until you get a renowned, widely recognized expert opinion, which in my industry is called an appraisal, everything else is pretty much guesswork. And this is where the faith piece comes in. So the whole time we're investing all of this money, time, resources, we're having faith that this project is going to yield what we think it's going to do. And it was cool because, you know, we just got our appraisal back this past week, and we hit a home run. You know, we did really well on that, and it was just like one of those moments that I had to just, it was a reminder that you gotta have the same type of faith and praise when you get that type of prize. When you're in the valley, you gotta have the same type of, just resolve, because the gift is already given to you. You know, the reward is already, you may not have obtained it yet. And this is where a lot of us, we allow our faith to waver because we get those human moments where it's like, man, it doesn't feel like I thought it was gonna feel, or, you know, maybe what if it doesn't work? You know, you start getting those negative thoughts creeping in. And so I just thought it was a good conversation for us to have. It's just, you know, appraisals versus projections.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's real world, real time stuff that's happening. And I know people kind of like, well, okay, that's real estate and all that, but that's really life. When you think about it, the faith piece that you bring up, because we do when we look at our lives, you know, all of us, I think kind of like, well, if you go back 20 years or 10 years, 5 years or whatever, we looking out to say, okay, what do we want to do, what we want to be? We're projecting out.
Yeah.
We're projecting.
I was thinking about going to elementary school for the first time 20 years ago, but go ahead.
Thank you for letting me know how old I am. But anyways,
Yeah.
All right. But you was thinking about it.
Yeah. I was graduating high school. That's interesting.
Yeah. And when you think about at those ages, what was your projection on your life?
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about elementary school, okay, hey, maybe you want to be an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about high school. Oh, hey, I want to go to college.
Yeah.
You know, so you got all these different projections that you got going on in your life, and you placing your faith, you know, kind of going off what you talked about around what you projected your life to be. But then, boom, the appraisal come in. Because now I go to college. I'm talking, use me. It's like, okay, I'm in college. I'm there. You know, I projected to be there. But now those grades telling me whether I should stay there.
Yeah.
Or if I actually can do it. So that's what I kind of, in my mind, that's the appraisal. Because you're seeing the grades come through, that you being appraised right there on your effort.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I want to go back to what you originally, before you laid out the full topic, you said something that was really interesting because we've been talking about this recently. You mentioned how in the beginning you have an idea of how it's going to go. You try to factor in as much as you can.
Yeah.
And then you move. And then, you know, as things start to develop, you find the holes. You see, well, maybe, okay, we're going to have to figure this one out. Okay, that thing just went off. We had no idea that was going to happen. Then, you figure it out as you go. And it's like, the thing is, we've been talking about like how, you know, God doesn't just come and say, he's just not going to hand you the full tree, right? He's going to hand you the seed. The tree, the seed and the whole forest is inside of that seed. But there's a process in between the realization of the forest, the fruit, and the planting, the nurturing, the development of that seed. And so he just said it. It's like there was the beginning, there was the process of it, there was the development of it, and all through the development of it, there's so many things that happen, so many things that you can't necessarily anticipate because you might be hearing, like we talked about before we started recording, somebody else might tell you that this is going to happen. You know, like, I'm a farmer, I've been farming for the last 30 years. When you plant that seed, you're going to have, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. Boom, 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 boom. You start going, you realize, wait, in my situation, in this country, in this climate, that thing didn't happen the way that you said it was going to happen. And so you got to work with it, you know?
Yeah, no, you said a key word. You said multiple key words, but you mentioned the process, which is one of my favorite words, as you guys know. But the reason why it's so important for us to really highlight in this particular moment is because I'm a firm believer that when you really dedicate your something, whether it's to, you know, God, family, sport, your career, you have to be willing to put your whole self into it. Okay? And you can't have the agreement that I'm going to put my whole self into it as long as my prize looks like it's supposed to look, or my appraisal comes back at this exact number. Because that was a possibility. We went through all scenarios. My wife and I, we're looking at real data. Like, listen, we've invested this much, like real dollars. We really need it to yield X amount for this to make sense. The reality is, there's been a lot of times that people had projections or forecasts or probabilities and the appraisals did not line up. And they were upside down. As anybody in 08 or 2010, go do some research in that time period, where literally it wasn't any of their fault. It's the whole economic system just completely failed.
And it's worth, when you say upside down, so people understand the term you're talking about. I mean, talking about 08. So if people had their homes, and let's say their home was worth $200,000 before the downturn, and they paying their mortgage every month. Now all of a sudden, with the downturn, the value of their homes go down, that appraisal go down. So now that same home is only worth $100,000.
Yep. Overnight. This happened overnight. It was just a collapse. And the house is still the same. To be honest, full transparency, what took a lot of people out of the real estate business allowed a Mike Wright to even come into this business. Because when I came in 2012, the only reason I was able to purchase multiple houses at 25 was because the houses were so cheap.
So let's talk about that for a minute. This going back to you getting to your projection appraisal. So what in you, that projection, what was that faith? Take us to that walk a little bit, because that's where it starts when what we're talking about, that seed.
Yeah. So going back to the process, you have to have a process, or what I call a buy box. And generally, the way my buy box looks is I take a general consensus average of the comps in that direct area, because this is basically going to show me houses for a 3-bedroom in this area within a quarter mile, if it's fully rehab, are going to appraise for generally, let's say 250,000 to 300,000. So that gives me a general, okay. Then you have to work backwards and say, okay, well, mine doesn't have a garage. That number is with a 2-car garage, so we may take another 10,000 off. And we just kind of keep working backwards, and we say, all right, if we whittle down all the variables that we know this particular house has, and then we think about our acquisition cost, what it's going to cost us to buy it, then we estimate what it's going to cost us to rehab. If we can be all in, my general number is under 75% of what the total appraisal is going to be, that may be something that I'm going to move forward on.
Gotcha.
If it's not going to be under 75% loan to value or LTV, I may walk away from that deal. And the reason why that's important to me is because I know if I'm renting it out, I have my monthly cash flow, but I have an exit strategy. If I ever get into a jam financially, I know that if it's under 75% of what it should appraise for, I can pull every dollar out of that house with a refinance and put it back and replenish my money. Yeah. Because my family's livelihood is on the side. You can't just make decisions just willy-nilly or projections and, well, I think this is a good deal. Like, okay, well, why is this a good deal? You got to show me why this is a good deal.
So you just laid out how you built your projection. And I think that's good. And I'm going to ask Martell to kind of, when you talk about the seed, bring that into the whole process, because there's a projection, because you built that projection and you showed how you did it. So when you talk about the seed and all that, how can we pull that together so people understand that it's not just about real estate, it's about life, it's about everything we do?
Well, I mean, take example, before I was in a relationship, I studied what you should do in a relationship.
Okay.
I had an idea of what it should look like, how things should be. I'm kind of this way, so she's probably should be this way. Or, I'm going to look for her like in this kind of rep. She might be interested in these things because, I'm interested in this. And these things will kind of work together. And, this is the whole thing, My projection was that I'm going to find somebody. And then if they fit this particular picture, then this will be the outcome of us being in a relationship.
Okay.
I got into a relationship.
All right. So how do you appraise it? Go ahead.
What I found out very quickly is that what I thought was just going to be the dream outcome of the relationship, if these variables were true, right? What I found out was that, oh, wait a minute, there were some unknowns that I could not have anticipated until being in this relationship, because I'm dealing with another human being, right? And so it's like, if we're talking about the projection piece of it, was everything that I went into, all the planning, and please don't get me wrong, I believe it was all necessary, because I will also be able to do a lot of things and make it work, or I kind of work inside of the situation and kind of develop it to be good. But the thing is, if I just kind of took my projection and then I got into the relationship, had the real appraisal, and then I decided, because this appraisal isn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, let me pull out, we'd be in a different situation.
Yeah, and just listen to both of you. Really, I think sometimes people will go into a situation without having a projection, and they will get an appraisal of it, not even knowing if it's a good buy or not. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? They will just, like you said, they'll just dive in.
Yeah.
And they'll start with the appraisal before actually doing the projection.
Yeah. This is a great conversation. I hope everybody's capturing, because on one hand we're talking business, the other hand we correlating into life, which is often what lessons are. You have to be able to take the lesson from this entity and utilize it in real life. Mm-hmm. It's like football. I learned a lot of lessons from playing football that translate to how I live my everyday life. Mm-hmm. Another point that I want to circle back on, in the beginning, when I was outlining what defines an appraisal, it's a widely recognized expert opinion that's validated and stamped. Okay? The reason why this is extremely important is because in today's day and age, and it's going to continue to get worse, anybody can Google any type of information, right? Right. We know this. Yeah. Having information is not a widely recognized expert opinion of value. Mm-hmm. And this is very critical in real estate, but it's also critical in life. This is where you have to be able to have a vetting system or use a certain level of discernment, because there's a lot of information. Even myself, I get confused sometimes because I'll hear something and somebody will say it with so much confidence. And I'm like, man, that sounds good. Yeah. And I'm like, but how does it make sense? You know what I'm saying? It don't really make, and then I gotta spend some time with it. You know, I may have to test it out. And it may not be what it was, because like we was having a conversation even before the cameras cut on, where even today, let's say this past year, I found out some new things in real estate that 5 years ago I did not, maybe last year, because I'm at another level. Now, when I was at level 10, I couldn't give an expert opinion on what happened at level 15, because I just wasn't there. Now I can give a projection, I can give a database forecast, but that's still an educated guess. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that. But because going back to real estate, it's a lot of information. You could, have a Zillow Zestimate or a Redfin estimate or a Realtor.com. And people say, well, it says this house should be worth this. And if you think that's law and you invest $50,000 more than what it's worth, and you come up upside down, that's a tough lesson to stomach, Yeah. And so this is why I really wanted to go back and just stress on, this is a part of why the word will tell you, like, surround yourself with wise counsel. Mm-hmm. Don't just think, any old body's just telling you any old thing and take it as law, because, to be honest, a lot of us were victim of that growing up. Yeah. Because we didn't have the internet. We couldn't, if we had a source and we thought it was a trusted source with our childlike mindset, we sometimes took their word as law. Yep. We didn't have to Google. Somebody tell you this is what it is because I said so. Mm-hmm. You got to just take it. Yep.
No, the thing, I like that you circled back to the it's an expert opinion, like real stuff. Because it's like, based on, the example that you just brought up, like when I was at level 10, I can't give you expert advice on level 15. I might have read all the books. I might have talked to people at level 15, but I'm at level 10. Yeah. And so we were just talking the other day. I'm like, we were the ministry, Freedom in Christ ministry. And we were talking about the vision. Yeah. Okay, where is this thing supposed to go? What does it look like when God planted the seed in your mind of where this is going, right? What does that look like? And he was explaining it to me. I'm like, so who are you learning from who's been at that spot, at that level? Because I'm like, just like you said, we can talk to, he's got a great mentor. But when I'm thinking, I'm like, from what I know right now, I don't think he's been there. Mm-hmm, so he can't give you that kind of information. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's so crucial, because that I keep that. I always try to, I know where I'm at, so I can talk very educated about what I've done, what I've experienced. I understand this. When I'm talking about something that's like level 20, level 55, I can say, what I've learned from here or what I read from this, they would say X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
The information that I have gathered says this is what you might be able to expect when you get to that point. I'm not there.
But see, right there, a simple disclaimer, it right sizes the room. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. They're giving me an opinion based on what they've read. Mm-hmm. Now, it only becomes potentially malicious if someone says the same information, but they say it as if, okay, yeah, this happened, and, I was able to get $10 million.
Yeah.
Now, that's malicious because and a reason why I'm harping on, because this happens a lot on the internet. It's a lot of people that, with that mindset, well, I'm at level 10, so I got 8 levels underneath I can teach. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they're wrong, but to me, that's a little muddy waters. And if you don't give that disclaimer in the beginning, it's potentially malicious.
Yeah, well, it's false advertising. Well, I should say false.
No,
it is. Yeah, well, you're giving a false perspective. You know what I'm saying? You paint the picture. It is false advertising.
It's false.
Yeah, and I think, what we all talking about here, and that being at this certain level of expert, because, Martell and I had the discussion, because it was good, because it opened my eyes to something too. But the other part of it, as we sit here and talk, is like that where you want to go and who can advise or you can glean from is not always straightforward either. Mm-hmm. So, and I think and we talked about, reading. I said, yeah, I do need to read. I need to kind of at least get an understanding of what's been, kind of what that might look like. Not taking it as fact, because when you go through it, just like you talked about relationships, you're talking about actually getting on the ground, you need to know. Now, what I truly have faith in is that those individuals or that individual will pop up in my life where I can understand and get closer. Just like you didn't see opportunities that came your way 5 years ago that came your way in the last year.
Yeah.
That help open your eyes. The same thing here. So I see, and that's where that faith come in, that whole walk. Like, okay, I know God He gonna open that door up where I'm gonna run into who I need to run into. I'm gonna connect. I'm gonna understand, because He's done it all the way up to this point.
So that's a good. That's interesting. We're talking about this because that's a part of my current. I'm living in past prayers. So this is telling me and my wife was somebody, we living in previous period. But now my current prayer for the future is exactly what you just said. Like, I'm praying that the wisdom, the wise counsel that I seek and I need comes, pops in. I've run into him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's just not, I think you tell me, that's why I want to ask you specifically, like, based on the statement you just made, because you're in I think it's a good example where the church, the ministry, you're creating something that started from a seed, a vision. You're in the process, you're doing work. You may have a forecast of what you want it to look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, but it's still just a forecast.
Yep.
How do you, let's dive a little bit deeper into that thought process, that prayer, dialogue, and I'm asking a little bit selfishly myself. I want to learn.
No, I'm glad we are, because actually, I'm going to talk about the church people. I'm going to talk about even career from a standpoint, right? I remember when I started in my career, I was at a certain grade. They call it salary grade 8 or whatever, right? Early on in my career, this is where I'm going to retire from. I'm just going to be a salary grade 8. But what happened was a situation, opportunity come up, ran into a guy, a mentor. You heard me talk about Phil Colley, no longer with us, but him and I talked. He put me on game to say, oh, wait a minute, this is how this works.
Yeah.
So it took a couple of years, but then the opportunity came up. All right. So then at that point, I was like, that's probably where I'd be, whatever, I ain't gonna go no further, whatever. But later on, a past boss of mine was my advocate, right? So he put me on game, and so now I'm like, it took about 4 or 5 years, but it's like, hey, there's another opportunity. But those people popped up. So let's go to the ministry. You heard me tell the story before. Martell was right at the beginning of it. It's like, man, my mind, we were gonna just do something very simple. YouTube channel, put a camera up in my loft, and we're gonna start rolling. But guess what? God brought a couple people to kind of you know, they started talking like, hey, what you want to do? Asking questions. But then they had skills. Martell come. Murray, you know, all this stuff, hey, you can do this. So now it wasn't just a loft thing. It was like, we're going to have a virtual Sunday service. Time rolled along. Mike like, man, when you getting the men together? When you going to do, you know, he didn't quite say it like that. But yeah. So now it's like, okay, hey, we need to do that. And it's like certain things popped up, things happened. So throughout this whole walk, you know, God has been bringing individuals, like the whole community service thing we just did this past Saturday. In the beginning, and you know, we were talking to my man, right? And, you know, it's my wife's cousin. We were just talking about something. He just called and said, hey, I heard you guys doing this, whatever. And he's like sharing what he was doing. Hey, let's collab. All of a sudden it's like, hey, boom, we got a partner. You know, and then we developed other partnerships with some other, like World Medical Relief, you know, Love Only, all this. So they're educating me. Like he and when I talk about my man, he started business. He's out there in the community. He's touching it, right, in a different way. So he poured into me in a different way, not spiritually, but he poured into me how that game worked. Yeah, you know, how you maneuver. So from a spiritual standpoint, now I've had individuals come to me to say, hey, we can help you grow. We can help you do this. But it ain't felt right. And I think I shared with y'all, like this one group that came and they like, hey, we can seed you X amount, but they want to control you. So all I'm saying is that the more we do, the more individuals, because it's an individual reaching out right now, I ain't feeling what he's saying. But the point though is that I know God gonna put me in those rooms and looking for, just like you, looking for who can that be, you know? Because I know something I would love to run into, and I need to create that opportunity maybe where it happened, but I can't walk them and be like, hey man, I need you to be my mentor. Because they like, here, they're gonna look at me because they got 100 people doing the same thing. But the situation is gonna have to bring it about. You know, even connecting with politicians, you know, understanding what's going on there as a ministry, like, hey, how can I help in the community? That's pulling those pieces together and understanding where it's gonna come from. It's gonna come out of that circle.
I mean, isn't that what faith is? Everything we just talked about, isn't that what faith is? It's like you don't see everything. You don't know all of the answers. But you have to move anyway. And then it's like, the thing is, the beautiful thing about having faith in God is that, like, as soon as you start going along that path, he's going to make sure that everything is set up for you. He's not leaving you out just to, you know, to fail or be destroyed by it. He's like, I need you to walk, I need you to trust in me, and I'm going to make sure that your path is straight. I'm going to direct that path. I'm going to make sure that who needs to be there at the time they need to be there, they're going to be there. And look, that doesn't mean that, you know, just because you take a step, you're not going to stumble a little bit. You're going to have that too. Because the thing is, just like we were just talking about, it's like when you do, you learn, oh, I shouldn't step on rocks when I walk. No, you're absolutely right, man. And I know we get into that time here in a minute, but just to, you know, even going in person, being here at the Freedom Center and all that, and both you guys, we was having a conversation. It was like, what, a year plus ago? I think Martell was there with us. We went to go look at a spot. And I remember Sherry, you know, we all like, hey, this spot, you know, whatever, That wasn't the spot. There was some work that needed to be done to prepare us. And the way this came about, Sherry was doing something else through her previous job and just asked the guy, hey, you got any other places available? And he said, oh yeah, I'll show you a spot. And then he showed us this place. So anyway, but go ahead, Mike.
No, it's interesting because, like, as we conclude, I was thinking, like, man, this is a good one. I'm like, what do I want to just leave, like, my final thought was. And as we were talking more, it made me think about, you know, this is, like I said, I'm living in real life where I'm reading the word, I'm reading the scripture, and it made me think about, and I want to say it verbatim because I don't want to try to, you know, adjust the word, but it's the Matthew 7:7. You know, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open for you. And so as I was asking you the questions, like, I was answering Jesus was answering the question for me in my head, but I still, you know, because this is a real illustration where the blueprint is the blueprint. But however, the human is, sometimes you do want to trust a friend and say, hey, what do you think about this? And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's nothing, respectfully like that Pastor Rodney, Martell, anybody can tell me the answer my questions outside of where, and that's, I know we all believe in the same thing. And I think it's important to just really illustrate that is all that we're the problem and we're the solution. Okay, we have everything that's already been given to us through the word. We just got to go back and.
You're absolutely right. And that communication with other people, the Holy Spirit will bring others to you and give you discernment. So to your point, myself, Martell, you, whatever, when we talking, if you know the Holy Spirit gave that message to you, you know what I'm saying? I can feel it. You guys tell me stuff sometime, like when Martell was talking to me that time, like, oh, that's the Holy Spirit talking to me. I need to do them. You tell me something, oh, boom, that's the Holy Spirit talking to me. I need to.
And it's just another thing I want to say, because just for anybody that, you may be trying to hear that voice clear, because it's funny in the beginning of these, when we started these podcasts, I don't know, a couple years, but I used to say openly, like, I was challenged because I was used to dealing with problems where God was always guiding me, but I was also listening to worldly voices. And even though I was getting the same message sometimes, it was still, I was trying to clarify what's what, like, really hearing. And so now I want to always give it back just pure and authentic, where the more you practice anything, the more comfortable it's going to be for you.
Yep. Amen.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it's like the more intentionality I spent where, I'm prioritizing the best times with me. I'm an early person. I do that at the top of the morning. I go and I study my word, whether I feel like it, whether I don't, whether I got something to do, whether I don't. It is priority. And the more that I've been intentional about it, the more clear the messages I've been seeing.
Yeah, the voice is clear, man. That's what's up. Hey, well, I think you need to close us out, man, 'cause we go on a whole another half an hour.
Because I know a lot of times when you watch something like this, what people typically do is they just take whatever was said in the last 5 minutes and then they run with that and they forget everything that came before. And so I think there were because this conversation was progressive. There was development in it. So it's very important that you circle back to the beginning of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like there was a projection, and it's important to have a projection, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the blueprint, it's the business plan, if you will, right? Before you actually start going. And that gives you it means that you've done some sort of homework, you've done some sort of research, and you know which step you might think is going to be a good idea for your first one, okay? Faith comes after that. And the thing is, we talk about, asking you shall receive, seeking you'll find, knocking the door will be opened unto you. If God's got you, if God planted the seed, he's going to make the way for it to develop into what it's supposed to be, okay? And the thing about it, like when we're talking about actually taking this step and, you might stumble here, you might stumble there, cool, but also take note of what happens. Because you don't want to be like the idiot or the fool, as the Bible puts it, who looks at his face, walks out, and then forgets what he looks like. Yeah. You got to actually you have to have the data. Keep the experience so that when you actually walk, you can walk more uprightly and straight. Now, the thing is, I wanted to, and this was the reason I pulled this out, Ephesians 5:15 and 16, but I'm going to just say 15. See that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise. This is what you were talking about. Circumspectly means that you are considering the consequences of the steps that you take. Yep. There's an awareness that comes with having faith, right? When you're moving, Rodney was talking about this, it's like I'm paying attention. There's more data is going to come. More people, you got the Google, you got everybody. Somebody's going to come and say, oh, you should be doing this, or hey, you might want to turn left here. But it's like the Holy Spirit, again, God is guiding you. You can take that, you can say, God says this, you say that, I'm going to go with what the word says.
Yep.
It's all important.
It is.
And then that trust is just incredibly important because, hats off to Mike over here because he's developing and he's growing and he's actually seeing the fruits of the prayers that came way beforehand. You got to keep moving.
We got to pick this one up again. We got to have a part 2. Although I think it's part of the series. It's part of the business series. It's part of the business series.
This is I think, an extremely important, because essentially this is the prize. This is what people try to skip to. When 90% of my conversations, when people say I want to talk real estate, they always want to come to this part. Tell me about the home run. And I always take them back. Well, let me tell you about the process that led to, because this is the thing, what you just said, where you have to consider all aspects. Like, it's a real, I've had appraisals come in less than we thought. When you're submitted to something fully, you have to take the good, the bad, and the ugly of everything that comes with it. And I'm gonna just put a pause on that because I think that's worth unpacking in our next.
Yeah, there you go.
Next
There you go.
episode.
So with that, Mike is saying, take us out, Martell.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. Real quick, spark super fast.
Hey,
Tell
okay.
them what you got.
Man 2.0, second Saturday of the month, 10 to 12, 28202 Franklin Road, Southfield. Join us, man, if you want to find out what a real man look like.
Yep. Come check out my IG at DetroitInvestor_WCI. Just highlights the real estate, family aspect, apparel. We got a bunch of stuff going on.
Awesome. Hey, if you are reading the Bible and you might be in a King James Version, you really don't understand what it means, what it's saying, you're really trying to figure it out and have a full understanding, kind of like, and have a conversation like we're having, but you want the data, you want the word, you want to actually understand it. Freedom in Christ Ministry, we put together a resource where it's going to literally walk you through how to read and study the Bible. Information is below. You definitely want to get it if you're having any sort of fuzzy ideas about, like, what does the Bible actually mean. This is going to help you to walk through it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast, and we hope to see you next week. Peace.
Peace.